Hello and welcome to Weekday Update. I'm your host, Paul from Karis Pen Co. Just kidding. It's Q&A number 4. Hopefully you're as excited and stoked as I am. Or maybe at this point you're bored and will never watch one of these again. Regardless, we're here to get into the weeds again and answer some questions. I've got 10 of your most burning questions here. Actually, and I have a page of some information that I printed off to go along with one of these questions because I didn't actually know the answer to it. It's a somewhat technical question. We'll get to that one at question number 2. But first off, let's start with a relatively easy one. Easy in terms of how I can answer it. The question is it possible to use a blowtorch to add color to a pen without damaging it? So this question has been asked frequently in the past, and the easy answer is really like you really need to know what you're doing, know the material that you're attempting to add fire tempered color to, and then there's a process that you have to go through with that material itself and in tempering and in the finishing and the heat that you need to get to every single color. So it is a very relatively technical process if you want to maintain the color, get a good color, and then have it turn out correct. A lot of our pens, well, actually the majority of our pens really don't lend themselves to it. You're really not going to do anything with aluminum, not going to really do anything with brass. You can fire copper, but it doesn't, the color really is not as drastic as you get with a lot of those fire blued steels or those fire tempered steels, and it will wear off unless you seal it. That's the one thing a lot of people don't really either don't know or they're not told. Besides the process of needing to be extremely precise, there's specific heats that each different material needs to reach to really get that color without damaging anything. And then there's a process that you have to go through, and quenching it in the type of liquid that you quench it in and what you treat it with. And then basically all of them, if you want to maintain that color, have to have a layer of basically some type of clear coat over the top of them. Otherwise, over time, the material, that treatment will come off, which is why it's not one of the things that we've done. We try not to do treatments to our pens that will easily degrade over time. We've done some of that in the past in very small numbers with some of the blackened brass pens that we did. But it was a very small number, and it was just something that we tested out. Really don't do anything with the copper and brass, and we don't do anything currently with firing anything for that reason. Mainly is because it's not something that's going to stick around. A lot of the pens that you'll see out there, if you own some of those pens that have been fired that haven't been sealed or haven't been treated properly, haven't gone through the right tempering and quenching process or got to the right temperature, you're going to notice that stuff comes off really easily, even with limited use. So it is a science. It is something that if you do some research on, you'll find a lot of threads on forums with metalworkers, it's metalsmiths, gunsmiths, and people that use that in their tool and in their trade that's used for a specific purpose. As far as cosmetic fire bluing and stuff like that, it still is, you still have to be very careful in those circumstances, and you really need to do your research, and it's just not something that we're really going to do at this time. We don't use steel, which is the best material to use for that. It's not something that we machine pens out of currently, and not something that we plan on doing in the future. So it can damage the pen. If you apply blowtorch to the wrong type of pen, it definitely will damage the pen. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can hurt yourself, or you can, even if you have a pen that you finish and you think it looks good, if it's not tempered the right way, not handled the right way, it can obviously, cause problems with that pen, or the finish doesn't turn out right. So we highly recommend people, if they're considering doing that, reach out to a professional and get some get some really good feedback from somebody who does that for a living. So second question, how durable is Delrin compared to aluminum? So I'm going to read real quickly directly from a data sheet that comes directly from DuPont, who's the producer of Delrin. So Delrin, if you're not aware of, Delrin is it's a homopolymer. Polyoxymethylene is the technical term, is the scientific term for it. You can find it on Wikipedia, and I'll we'll maybe put a link down below, or just a real quick, if you type in Delrin and click the Wikipedia, it'll give you some idea about it. This is actually, since Delrin is the trademarked term that DuPont uses for theirs, I'll just read it real quick. Delrin is an aceto-homopolymer that with an outstanding balance of properties that bridge the gap between metal and plastic. The key attributes of Delrin are low moisture absorption, high tensile strength, creep resistance, and durability. Because of its extreme chemical resistance to hydrocarbons, solvents, and natural chemicals, Delrin is ideal for industrial applications. Delrin's balance of physical, tribiological, environmental properties make it ideal for applications where there is a concern for wear and mechanical stability. Parts exposed to wet environments such as a pump and valve components are especially suitable. With a combination of physical and environmental properties, this material is ideal for industrial wear and mechanical reliability. So wear and abrasion properties, dimensional stability, low moisture absorption, mechanical stability when wet, excellent machinability, high fatigue endurance, high strength and stiffness, superior impact and creep resistance, chemical resistance to fuels and solvents. So it's something that's used a lot in like bearings and bushings and fittings and rollers because of that. You can combine it in a wet environment that also is something that needs friction, that has a lot of friction moving parts where there's water used to cool it, so that it doesn't degrade, because it does get problematic at some temperatures that are lower than other plastics. But for the most part, it's a much better plastic, or non-metal to use in terms as opposed to something like acrylic or other polycarbonates or something like that. So it does have a really high strength, very durable. One of the few things in a cosmetic setting is that it will it can scratch if you like get a sharp object on it. It can scratch, and then getting rid of the scratch is somewhat difficult. So that's the one thing as far as a pen is concerned that I really look at. It is strong. It's going to be much stronger than, say, the acrylics that we use or some of the other plastics that we use. Not as strong as aluminum, but still very strong for non-metal. And like I said, the only real issue that we run into is that it can scratch if a sharp object hits it. So for a cosmetic setting, that's the one thing you really have to look out for. So this is one of those fun questions. I'm going to try to throw in a couple more of these. This one is, what's your favorite drink to have after work? I don't drink anymore, so if you look at like the whole group of people here, interestingly enough, a lot of the people that work at Karis don't drink alcohol, and I don't really drink a lot other than water. I'll have one coffee in the morning usually, and then at home it's usually after work. It's usually try to drink a lot of water. Every once in a while I do drink like sparkling water. So I'm one of those foo-foo people that likes La Croix and all that stuff. But it's just, I like to stay hydrated as much as possible. We live in the desert, and drinking regular water can kind of be a bummer after you drink a lot of it. So something that has a little bit of flavor or texture to it. I don't drink soda, or very rarely drink soda. I will drink an Arnold Palmer. Arnold Palmer is probably my one big like cheat drink. I don't drink energy drinks. So if I'm going to have something, I would probably say like an Arnold Palmer. But then again, I probably wouldn't have it after work because I try not to drink caffeine after noon, just because it really throws off my sleep cycle. Back in the day, it definitely would have been a good craft beer. Like back in the day, I was really big into craft beer, and craft beer is like It was the big one after work that I drank. But otherwise, right now, a big glass of water or an Arnold Palmer is what I'd go with. Would you ever do small batch limited releases of discontinued products like the Delrin Render K or Fountain K, or specific colors made once a year or so? So I've kind of done this before with like some of the EDKs where we release a color scheme once a year. The retract R types for that. That's basically that model. The retract R types currently has. We released 2 different color schemes last year, and once we sold out of those, we sold out of those. And this year we're doing 2 different color schemes of the retract R types that are going to be different from last year's. So that's going to be where that is. As far as like doing Delrin Fountain Ks or Render Ks again, it's probably not something we're going to do. We are going to be releasing Delrin Decagraphs. That's going to be like one of the next releases of the Decograph. But doing a Fountain K out of Delrin or a Render K out of Delrin or any of our other pens is not really in the possibilities. Just it's not the material. While strong, with the walls of the Fountain K caps are just a little too thin for that material, where you can get some movement while machining, and so it doesn't finish correctly. So it's not something that we're really looking to do with that. We would, if we did another Delrin pen like the Decograph, we would definitely, it would be a pen that we kind of designed with plastics being the main type of pen we made up, type of material we used for that pen. Designing with the material in mind is something that we really have adopted moving forward. It's really difficult to go backwards to a less strong material, as opposed to, we design the Decograph around plastics, that we can definitely translate a lot of that to metals. But designing a pen based on metals, most of the time doesn't work with going backwards to plastics, because there's certain things that you just can't do with plastics that you can with metal. So it's one of the reasons why you're probably not going to see Delrin Decagraphs or Delrin Fountain Ks or inks or bolts or anything like that. Will you ever do a multi-pen? So we've looked at doing a multi-pen, and it's something that's not out of the realm of possibilities that we might do in the future. I really like a good multi-pen. Dan really likes a good multi-pen. Multi-pens are just kind of cool. They're very functional. It gives you the option to have. I have a Lamy 2000 multi-pen that I really like, with the green. It's a 4-pen. That's the green, blue, red, and black ink in it. And while the refills that came standard in it are kind of a little bit problematic, the function form and what it allows you to do, I use it for annotations in different classes at school, so it does work really well. So something that we'd like to do down the road. It's just not at the top of the list right now in terms of branching out into that. So may see it probably, but it probably wouldn't be the earliest until sometime next year. Not even on the prototyping calendar at this point in time. But it's not off the table either, so just want to make sure you guys know. Will you ever have more nib options? So this is a curious question, and I don't really know how to answer it. I think if you're the one that asked this question, I think what you're kind of going for is in terms of kind of like some companies that have ground nib options, where they sell custom ground nibs with their pens at a time, because we have quite a few nib options in terms of standard sizes, and even some calligraphy stub sizes in the polished steel. And then we have a lot of different materials. So, we have the titanium, we have the gold, two-tone in the ink in the Decograph. So we are looking into potentially, hopefully, getting some double broad nibs in the future. So there is that possibility. But in terms of the ground, like nib grinds, or specifically selling like cursive italics, or smooth stubs, stuff like that, architect grinds and stuff. We really have to partner with a nib meister and kind of figure something out. We've had talks before in the past with different nib meisters and nib grinders, and just never really kind of came to fruition. So it's something that we're really looking towards, but at this point in time, it's not something that we have figured out how to do. Right now, we're just going to offer as many options as we can stock and carry that we think are popular among the customers. So if it's an option that we're able to get from Bock, we'll definitely, and it's something that we see a big enough audience for, we'll definitely purchase it in stock and keep it in stock until it proves otherwise. Which is why we carry the polished steel, the two-tone titanium, and the 14 karat gold. All of those sell enough units for us to keep them in stock. So if you have a specific question, a specific nib that you're looking for, you can always comment down below or send me an email, and I'll try to answer that specifically, but hopefully that helps you out a little with the nibs. How do I find out what nibs and what nib thicknesses are on your pins? So this is specific to Bock. Doesn't mark their nibs with their tip sizes. Unfortunately, it's my one gripe, the only gripe that I have with Bock nibs. Otherwise, I think that they're superior to a lot of the other options that are out there in terms of European nib manufacturing. I really like Bock nibs. I like their smoothness. I like the options that they give you. As far as 14 karat gold nibs are concerned, out of the box, straight out of the box, having used a variety of different 14 karat nibs now from different European manufacturers, hands down, Bock are some of the best ones. Where you really get a good nib right out of the box, and it's nice and wet. Does allow a little line variation. So, but in terms of thickness, they don't put the tip size on. They don't stamp them on the nibs. Don't know why that is. We've asked them to do it. They said they'll do it for us if we order them in quantities over several thousand of each tip size at a time. So it's not something that we potentially are going to do now. What we do is, if you unscrew the nib, and we'll show you like a photo probably right here of what I'm talking about. If you unscrew the nib, on the black collar, the thread-in unit, we mark the nibs with a different color scheme with paint markers. So it's either going to be on the side of the nib or down at the bottom, right where the converter attaches to. You'll see one of 4 different colors. Hopefully with the stubs, you'll be able to tell whether it's a 1.1, a 1.5, or 1.9. They're drastically different, but those we mark as well. So the way that we do it is, if there's a white dot or a white ring, if there's a white dot on the side or a white ring around where the converter attaches, that's an extra fine nib. If it's all black, no color around in any spot, that's going to be a fine. Medium is going to have a yellow dot or a yellow ring. Red is the broad denotation, so that you'll have either a red dot or a red ring. And then the stubs, we use blue, and we use them in a few different ways. So if it's a 1 dot, it's going to be a 1.1, 2 dots, it's a 1.5, and then a 1.9 is so big that we don't usually mark those. It's really like, you basically have a highlighter size nib. So, and most people know with the 1.9s that they've ordered those. So we really don't mark those. In the future, we'll probably find a marking system or another color that we'll purchase for those when we, if we continue to keep those around. We might discontinue the 1.9s, haven't decided yet. We haven't even sold through our initial batch of them, which is which is why we're not keeping them in stock as much as the other ones, because they're just not as big sellers, obviously. Because it's, like I said, it's a really good nib if you're going to use highlighters. You're going to turn your fountain pen into a highlighter. Otherwise, it's really difficult to write with unless you're actually doing calligraphy. Is it possible to attach the nib only from the rest of your support. Now, I think the question is referring to is in terms of the support. I think pulling the nib only out of the feed and the collar. So the Bock nibs are shipped in what they call a triple system, which is 3 parts: feed, collar, threaded collar, and then the nib itself. And the feed and the nib are friction fit inside the threaded collar. So yes, the feed and the nib can be pulled directly out. They do have on the 250s, they have a locating groove so that you can only put them in one way. In the 076s, there isn't a locating groove. You can put the nib and the feed back in at any point. But they all are friction fit inside those collars, so you can pull them directly out. And some people want to put different, number 6 or number 5 nibs on those pens. You can do that as long with several different of the nibs that are on the market, swap them out or what have you. So yes, you can pull them directly out and they come right out. Just be careful when you do that. Make sure that you grab them firmly between your thumb and forefinger, pull directly out. Try not to twist them. I always say that make sure that the nib and the feed are relatively clean. If you've let it sit for a while, you need to soak it before you can pull it out. And then I obviously use something like a paper towel or a soft cloth to pull it out with so that you can get a better grip on it and your hand doesn't slip. Can I get a discarded pen that may be thrown out? So the short answer to this question is no, and here's why. Pens that are quote unquote thrown out, the only pens that we get rid of are recycled, and they're only pens that are non-functioning. So if a pen will not function, the threads don't work properly, it wasn't drilled at the right angle, or something was off in the machining, if it's non-functional, all of those items are recycled. So much like our metal shavings and the chips that we have, we partner with a recycling company that recycles all that stuff. In terms of pens that have cosmetic flaws, or for whatever reason they're functional but they're not sellable, we don't give those pens. So we collect those pens and we give those pens to school systems. I get requests throughout the year from teachers, most of them in the creative writing or arts area, for donations. They'll have some high school students that are going to be doing NaNoWriMo in November, or there's an arts program that's doing a drawing class, or what have you. So I get requests throughout the year, and I compile those and keep those. And then basically what we do with the pens that are not perfect, but they're functional, is we basically contact the teacher and say, here's how many pens I have right now. This is what I can send you, and then we send those out. So we, throughout the year, probably between 4 to 6 times a year, we'll send out all of the non-sellable stock that we have to elementary, junior high, and high schools around the nation. And that's how basically we get that out. We get our non-sellable stock out of inventory. It's just something that we decided I decided to do when I came on board, because I got a lot of requests from teachers that were really trying to promote writing and drawing, and we felt like it's been a really big hit. I have one teacher specifically that I've worked with for the past 3 years, and he's grown his creative writing class from 12 students the first year. This last year, I believe they had 86 students that were involved in that creative writing program. And I am a big proponent of reading and writing as something that helps students learn, helps kids learn. And Dan is the same with drawing. It engages the mind in different ways that allows kids to learn differently, that they might not focus when they're sitting in front of a classroom, but you give them a pen and a paper and encourage them to write or draw, and they'll sit there and they'll write and they'll draw. and it connects with them on a different level. So we have basically made that our program of getting rid of those pens, not even getting rid of, just basically donating those pens to programs around the nation that are really in need of that type of thing. And we just feel like it's one more thing that we can do. We give fully functional pens away in our giveaways. You know, we give students these pens, and they might not be perfect, but hopefully it's something that will foster a sense of encouragement and allow them to engage in the process of creating a little bit more. So like I said, the short answer on that, we're not going to give away pens to anybody like that. They'll continue to go to school systems until I stop having school systems reach out to me. Last question for the day: In-N-Out or Five Guys? So I'm an In-N-Out guy myself, personally. Maybe because In-N-Out came here before Five Guys did. If you know, my daughter is like the biggest In-N-Out. She would eat In-N-Out 7 days a week, every single meal. I like In-N-Out a little bit better. I know it's a limited menu, but I think the pricing is a little bit better and the flavors is a little bit better. I'm not going to turn down Five Guys, but it's not my go-to in terms of what we got going on. Our videographer is giving me a thumbs down and sticking his tongue out at it. So apparently he's a Five Guys fan, or like a Smash Burger fan, or maybe he just doesn't like burgers at all. He's nodding. He says no burgers for him. Tommy likes burritos, probably, or something like that. Breakfast burritos. But yeah, for In-N-Out, for hamburgers, actually, if I'm gonna eat a hamburger, I'd much rather just go out to the grill and cook it myself. I really like hamburgers right off the grill from the backyard. So that would be my #1 choice. But a close second would be In-N-Out. All right, guys, as always, if you want your question answered, the link's down below to the form. Fill it out. I'll try to answer it, as long as it's not something that we've already covered. These videos are being put into a playlist so you can easily go through all the different Q&A videos. All of these videos are annotated below with each question and the times that those questions are started. So if you want to click ahead or you want to click around or what have you, just pick whichever questions you want to hear the answer to. You can go ahead and do that, since I know that these Q&As tend to be a little bit longer. Thank you for sticking with us, and as always, please like the video, subscribe to our page, share the videos, especially the shorter ones that are a little bit less weighty than some of the videos like this. If you're just trying to share some of the cool videos, we've got a lot. The shop shorts are some of the greatest videos for you guys to share on your page. They're relatively short, show some really cool stuff, a lot of times live art, or us walking around, some of our friends that we do stuff for in their in their garages when they're working on custom cars or motorcycles or what have you, or going to the Grand Canyon. Tommy makes his way around the state and really does some cool things with the shop shorts. So those are some of the best videos to share. If you're trying to share specific videos on content where it's a specific pen or a product that we carry, we have almost all those on there. If we're missing a video and that you want us to do a full video of, comment down below. We might have missed something. Please hit us up with potential videos that we might not have in our catalog, because sometimes we just don't think about it. So we're always looking for new content, new things to talk about. If you have a great idea, put it down below. If we pick your idea and it's one of those great videos where we basically do a video because of a suggestion that you did, yeah, we'll contact you, and I think I'm going to send you some cool Kara swag. So maybe that's a way for you guys to get in on a video and get some cool stuff out of it. So thank you guys for sticking with me. That wraps it up for the weekday update. I'm Paul at Kara's Pen Co. Talk to you next time.